Hello everybody, welcome back to Cinema Savvy. It is myself, George, bringing you a brand new review. And today I'm going to be talking about Creature Commandos Season 1, the first instalment in the DCU, which is streaming on Sky here in the UK. And you might all be wondering, why is he talking about a show that came out at the end of last year? Yes, it released in America December 2024, and back here in the UK we got it at the start of summer, so only the 7 months late from Sky on that one. And I'm going to be giving my thoughts on this because we are days away from the launch of Peacemaker Season 2. You may have seen our spoiler-free review on the first 5 episodes. We have also obviously reviewed Superman, which was the second instalment in the DCU, because Creature Commandos is by default the first. And I was sat there thinking recently, you know what, if we're going to cover this new cinematic universe, it doesn't look very good I missed the first one. And that was by my own fault. I should have took it into my own hands to watch it or to try and get some coverage of it last year. But I've been lucky in watching the series. I've binged the series, and I'm going to recommend people to do the same. I'm going to talk about it in a bit of spoiler detail, but also not in depth enough to be a spoiler discussion. So this is a very polite warning. Forget that, I won't do spoilers, but I'm going to talk about the narrative structure of the season. But before I say any more, everybody watching at home, if you like this video, if you like what we're doing with DC, we've got a snazzy new DC logo, do hit the subscribe button, because we'll be covering Peacemaker once the finale airs. We can do a massive spoiler discussion. I'll be looking to get a couple of guests on for that one. I'll be talking about it on Get Your Comic On podcast as well. And yeah, there's a lot happening on the channel at the moment. If you want to find our social medias, get us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, Blue Sky, all of which on linktree.com/cinemasavvy. There's a link in the description below. But let's talk Creature Commandos now. And I feel a bit nervous doing DC stuff without Neil here, because I am not an aficionado by any means on Creature Commandos. I didn't know a single one of these characters, bar Rick Flag Sr. heading into watching the show. I didn't even know what to expect with the show. I'd heard good reviews. I'd heard it kickstarted the DCU, but it wasn't like a narrative way of saying you must watch it. It was a new, very much James Gunn written animated series, and for that I'm sold. I'm sorry, it's as simple as that. I'm really enjoying what he's doing with his comic book work, if you can call it that. And with this being his first project ahead of DC, knowing that 7 months later we know that there's a second season that's been confirmed, had very good reviews from critics that had seen it, and fans seem to enjoy it. An adult-rated animated series at that. There's a few things I was looking forward to, and I didn't actually expect to be doing a review on it too. So it's a kind of weird placement for me. I will talk a little bit at the end about a character in this that will be setting up something else down the line. I'll talk about that right at the end, because it's a very good surprise if, like me, you didn't know this character would be in the series. But I guess I can talk about that this series follows Rick Flag Sr. as he puts together a special team to essentially do a mission together. Very reminiscent of the Suicide Squad, I'm going to add. And like the Suicide Squad, this team is harboured up of quote-unquote the worst of the worst. And if you can tell by the title, these are all creatures. Where I'm going with this review is my initial thoughts on the story. I'm not doing the in-depth discussion, as I said. But I did not expect to gravitate towards the series as much as I did. The reason for that is that it was 7 episodes, about 20-30 minutes each. What James Gunn is able to develop in essentially like a 3 hours-ish running time for a whole group of individuals to have their own character stories, character depth, completely blew me away. I didn't think this would be on the cards. I thought this would be just a very easy watching, not Saturday morning cartoon, because I knew it was James Gunn, so it's going to be a bit more adult than that. But I did not expect the show to be at the quality it is. Maybe that is on me. Maybe that's because Sky didn't make any effort to get it here in the first place. The problem sometimes with streaming is that when they make nothing available, you think the worst of it. The old direct-to-DVD type stuff. I had this sort of fear of Creature Commandos that they had no intention of showing it, and because of that, it might not be all that. I didn't see a trailer for this either. I didn't know what to expect. So I was watching the first episode, and the title sequence came. And some of the names I saw attached blew me away. Indira Varma, Sean Gunn, David Harbour, Alan Tudyk, Zoe Chow appeared. Zoe Chow's the one I'm the most unfamiliar with. Frank Grillo, of course, who's obviously had his role in Superman. And the amount of people that pop up throughout. Linda Cardinelli appears in a voice role. I was like, wow, why aren't people really talking about this? And I got past the first episode, which is very much a setup. It's what you'd expect, right? It's the mission. They got to get there to protect the princess, to stop her from this evil tyrant taking over. I'm fine with that. Then episode 2 comes in. Then episode 3, and I'm like, hold on a minute. Is every episode dedicated to a character? Because that's exactly what happens. And I'm going to talk about the narrative structure of that, which is my biggest recommendation for the series. We have a 7-episode series where there are, let's say, 6 to 6.5, because Rick Flag Sr. is the lead of the current day storyline, and he doesn't get that much development. There's conversation spoken about his son, Rick Flag, obviously from Suicide Squad, who dies, but I wasn't really sure what to think of him in this, but the whole team gets some of the most interesting character development you can have. And I'm just going to talk about each episode very briefly and sort of epitomise how that. So episode 2 focuses on the bride, played by Indira Varma. We get weaved in throughout, and this is the story narrative perspective of every episode. We have their history that takes them from the origin through to where they are today and why they've been locked up at Argus. That interweaves with the storyline of the main war sequence going on. So we have The Bride by Indira Varma headlining episode 2. G.I. Robot, voiced by Sean Gunn in episode 3. Weasel from Suicide Squad, voiced by Sean Gunn in episode 4. Frankenstein by David Harbour in episode 5. Dr. Phosphorus from Alan Tudyk in episode 6. And Nina, played by Zoe Chow in the season finale. Now, that feels like I'm glossing over these performances. I'm really not. The voice cast is incredible in this. And when you do have the big names, and this is something I've got an issue with the industry on, certainly in voice roles, maybe this makes me a bit of a hypocrite, the amount of times we've seen A-list actors cast in voice roles who are just there because they want the A-lister and they don't actually offer too much. Now that happens in film more so than TV, and I wouldn't say the names on this are directly A-listers as such, not in a disrespectful way. You could argue that David Harbour is probably the biggest name on this list, but each of these are very respectable actors who have done live action work, who have been in big Hollywood productions, have been in drama, theatre, you name it. Like so many of James Gunn's other projects, everyone was perfectly cast for this, and the voice performances from this core group are amazing. Maria Bakalova's in this as well, another Guardians alumni who I've got a shout out to. Amanda Waller, of course, obviously part of the setup on this one. So I loved seeing it come together. And when I spoke before about comic book properties, I actually prefer origin films and origin stories a lot. When it's characters I don't know, I like to see how they came into that perspective. And it's just weirdly been a thing for me. Maybe because my first entry to comic book stuff was Spider-Man in '02. I just love a good origin story. And I didn't expect to have this for these characters written so well in such a small amount of screen time for each of them that they felt fleshed out, two-dimensional, sympathetic. And there's something about James Gunn that is so good at writing societal outcasts, whether they're terrible people, they're good people that have had bad things happen to them, or they're just good people, they're the worst. It doesn't matter what his approach is, he's so good at writing depth in them. And the people he cast in them, whether they're live action and now whether they be animated, he's able to develop them. And there has to be an incredible shout out to him to do this. On top of the fact he was writing and making a Superman film and Peacemaker at the same time as this, it's really quite incredible that this has happened. And I have to say hats off to him. And that's kind of where I'm going. This is why I recommend this show to everybody. I'm not just timing it now because Peacemaker's coming out. I actually think this series should be essential viewing for anyone wanting to watch Peacemaker Season 2. Because Rick Flag Sr. is a character that has a key part in Peacemaker Season 2. He is the antagonist of the series. It's very interesting to spend time with him as the protagonist of this animated series with the same lead actor. You're able to build up his character, his relationship with others, his personality, and whether or not that has a meaningful effect in Peacemaker or it has an effect in his small scenes in Superman, it adds to the fact that we are now in a DCU, a DC universe, something that's not been coherent in over a decade. And the fact that 3 projects in, James Gunn has absolutely nailed it. I really recommend watching this show, not even from a homework perspective. If you watch this show, you will be blown away. You'll be shocked at certain characters. You'll empathise with some of them. You'll be surprised at what they're doing in animation. how they're able to develop them, it really sort of did blow my mind away. And I don't watch an awful lot of animated shows. That is a me problem. I've got a lot of friends that are into anime. I've never got into it myself, but for 7 episodes to find out about characters, which I'm skimming it on my screen now, I don't know anything about any of these. And the fact I came out of it and I cared, and for the sake of the review, the one I loved the most was the GI Robot story. I thought it was hilarious, it was entertaining, and it really does show that wild side of James Gunn. And I recommend everybody to watch this season. Watch this season. If you haven't seen Superman, you don't need to have seen Superman to see this. You don't need to see this to see Peacemaker, but I really recommend seeing it because it will enhance your experience. And it is a great series to have watched this year. So that is where I'm rounding out with my review on this one. Now, if you haven't seen the show, turn off now, because I'm going to talk about a character who's getting his own film. Clayface appears in this. Completely blew me away. I was sat there gobsmacked, like, what? Like, Clayface? I was like, they're doing a Clayface film, right? And then my brain started whirring. I was like, he's done it again. Like, James Gunn's done it. He's planted Clayface in this. Could be a different Clayface, the film that we know is entering production soon. But the fact that he's able to play an antagonist in this, the fact it isn't, oh, we only have the DC villains, the Batman villains in Batman stuff, Superman villains, Superman stuff. The fact they have a bit of fun with varying characters. I had a great time with this. The episodes, as I said, the structure, the story that worked. I really enjoyed where they went with the villain too, and they are teasing what is to come of this DC Phase 1 Gods and Monsters, and for that, absolutely worth watching. Do watch this series. If you haven't seen the series, or you have, I'm all over the place. Comment your thoughts on it below. I do want to hear what people have been saying, but that is me rounding out. So once again, thank you all so much for watching. Take care, and I'll see you on the next one.